Hey, this is Robbie Crane from Black Star Writers, and you're listening to Nothing Shocking Podcast. Rock out.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studios is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on Twitter at NoShockPod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking Podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Ragged Records, located in downtown Rock Island, Illinois, soon to be coming back to downtown Davenport, Iowa. We would like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for letting us use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Robbie Crane
of Black Star Writers,
Ricky Warwick,
Ratt, Vince Neil,
the Lynch Mob,
and Saints of the Underground.
Yeah.
What a great interview.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. We talked about Ricky Warwick's new solo album, When Life Was Hard and Fast. It's coming out, I believe, this Friday, February 19th.
I believe so. Also, we are kind of hoping that we're going to see some new Black Star Rider material toward the end of 2021. So we're going to keep our fingers crossed, all of our listeners. Robbie Crane, keep your fingers crossed that we're going to get new Black Star Rider material coming out before 2022.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Good night.
Good night. Robbie, welcome to the Nothing Shocking Podcast. I'd like to introduce you to my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Yeah, hey, Robbie. It's good to talk to you tonight.
Hey, you too, Jeff. How you doing?
Good.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for all the correspondence that we've been kind of hit and miss over the last couple of days, but and the last minute, with you agreeing to do this at the last minute. So this is fantastic. We're excited to have you.
Yeah.
So, absolutely.
Yeah, man.
Thanks for having me.
2021 is going to be an exciting time for let's hope it's going to be an exciting time for Black Star Writers. The band is preparing to record a fifth album. Can you talk and give us some more specifics on this?
Yeah, it seems like we're always writing songs for whatever new record, just for the enjoyment of writing songs. But Christian, Ricky, myself, and Scott, we all got together and wrote some songs in the past year prior to the whole shutdown, and we demoed them in I'd say probably mid last year, and we were preparing them for new record. We were gonna go in October, but because of the pandemic and everything, it just the studios weren't open and they closed everything down here in California. So we opted to push it back, and we're just getting ready to go in and finish that record and get it ready for release as soon as possible. And as soon as all the restrictions lighten up, we'll be able to get it back out there and get a record out to everybody. It's exciting.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to steal one more question before I hand it over to Jeff, but as far as recording processes go for Black Star Writers, do you guys do it the old-fashioned way? You get into an independent studio and you jam these things out together and you work together as a team, or do you do it from your home and you record your parts and you send them into one another? How does it work out?
Yeah, so Black Star Writers is probably like most of the old school bands, although we do utilize a lot of technology. Scott lives in London. Ricky and I live here in California. Christian lives in up north, and Chad lives in Pennsylvania. So what we've done, we've managed to, what the Black Star Writers has done, I should say, is we hub out of London. Our main place is in London. We have a place in Cambridge where all of our gear is stored, and we do all of our post and pre-production tour stuff out of. But for recording, we tend to send all of the different ideas to Ricky and Christian and Chad and and Scott and I, we just kind of share our ideas. You know, Ricky is the main hub. Christian is definitely he's the demo master. You send him an idea and he makes it into a song. He's like Lindsey Buckingham. So you can send him like 2 notes and he's like, you know, he's handing you, you know, Master of Puppets in 5 minutes. And it's pretty cool. So you know, it's great to have that as a group. So what we do is we've sent the songs around and then we get them into a demo form, and then we meet with our last record with we had Jay Rustin produce it for us, and so we met in Los Angeles for 2 weeks of pre-production, and you know, we got into a room as a band, just like old school, and just kind of jammed the songs, and you know, let them take shape and form. There's really no like preset anything. It's just, you know, the demo version is quite literally that. It's just a demo version. So we work on each song or each idea, the drum patterns, bass patterns, and we get them to a point where we're pretty comfortable to record them. We've recorded, let me see here, 2 of our records are recorded with Nick Rascal-Lennox in Nashville. And that process, it was a little bit more, I call it new school, in that, you know, you record the drums, you record the bass, you record the guitars. Everything was pretty separate, you know, individual performances in front of the console and the producer. As to where with Jay Rustin on our last record, Another State of Grace, we literally got into a room, the 5 of us, and jammed. And Jay just recorded it. And, you know, we went through the song a few passes of each and fixed anything that we didn't think was, you know, cool and moved on to the next song. So we were doing a song a day, and which I thought was so cool. I think the energy on that record, you just capture that old school, you know, 5 guys in a room jamming with each other. You know, you quite literally capture that snapshot of musical moment, you know what I mean, of creativity. And I think that I think the music jumps off the speaker that way. For me, I've noticed it. And that's our aspiration. We hope to do the same thing again with regard to the next record with Jay. Jay seems to have been the right choice. There was some apprehension on my end, to be honest with you, initially, because I never worked with Jay. Jay mixed all of our records. He mixed the Heavy Fire record, and he mixed Killer Instinct, and Kevin Shirley recorded the very first record, which had the amazing Marco Mendoza on bass, and which we'll get into Marco later. But you know, it's just I think that we've come such a long way since the first record, second, third, fourth record, to now we're in this really organic state where we just kind of, like I said, 5 dudes jamming in a room. You know, you record what you get, and again, if there's anything that's funky, you can go back and fix it. But for the most part, like Chad and I, we managed to get like full takes of bass and drums that were just, you know, Christian and Scott as well, and not the vocals. I mean, the vocals you're going to come back and work on because you want to make sure those are a little bit better. But yeah, it was just a great experience to record those records that way, or that record that way. Yeah,
fantastic.
Yeah.
Good, Jeff.
Yeah, we were talking to Chad a couple of weeks ago, and he talked about Scott giving him some crap, you know, when he joined the band and stuff. Do you have any Scott
we all did
stories?
Yeah, no, Chad, man, what a wonderful person.
Yeah,
you know, Chad's a different generation than all of us, a few generations younger than Scott, and a generation younger than me and Ricky, and more in the same generation as Christian, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, music knows no boundaries, right? But you know, Chad. First of all, I'll say this about Chad. Not only is he a musician, but as a person, he brought such a different energy and spirit to the band. And that's not to say anything bad about Jimmy DeGrasso, who I love. And we loved playing with. He's an amazing musician. Jimmy is, you know, he's an old school veteran drummer who's been through it all, and he wears it. and Chad, on the other hand, there is not a, and that's not, again, to say that there's anything in anybody else, but Chad doesn't have a mean bone in his body. He has such a wonderful energy, and it comes across in his drumming. And so for us initially, I will say this. When he first, we held drum auditions, first of all, when we knew we were going to need a new drummer and Jimmy was moving on. And we played with, oh man, we must have played with 20 drummers. We have the videos of it. And some of them were just amazing. And some of them, it was just videos. It's hilarious. And some of them were like, what the hell? But, you know, you run into that. And Chad, we didn't actually physically get to play with. He actually sent a video in of him quite literally jamming to a boombox with a few Black Star Rider songs. And every one of us, right when we saw the first measure, we go, that's the guy. And just something about Chad that drew us to him. And, you know, when we went to record the Another State of Grace record, Chad and I would sit in this, we recorded in this really beautiful studio in Los Angeles called Sphere. And the great thing about it is it had just beautiful rooms. It's just a really big, huge, beautiful studio. Stevie Wonder ended up buying it. It's just amazing. Oh, cool. It's a beautiful studio. But Chad and I would sit in the room and we would go over the songs. And I have my acoustic bass and he would just have his sticks and we would just kind of go through the song. Hey, what are you doing there? Oh yeah, let's do something here. Oh cool. We just kind of shoot the, whatever. And Scott Gorham would sit there and go, man, I've never seen a drummer and bass player do that. That's so cool. And it gave Scott the opportunity, who, by the way, as, Mr. Thin Lizzy, co-wrote that, Boys Are Back in Hell, all these great Thin Lizzy songs. Guy's done some of the greatest records in rock and roll history. He has such a great vision for drums and bass. He used to be a bass player. So he would, hey, man, you guys should do this here. Hey, Robbie, try this. It was like so cool that we all were able to collaborate. And not that we weren't able to before. I just don't think we were in quite the position or the environment. And it's, again, not on anybody. It's just more on us than anything. That Chad and I, when we went to record, we were so in sync. And it really, in my opinion, again, comes off on that record. I mean, Scott would, we call Chad Happy Hands because, it's a different style of hi-hat than we're used to. But, and he does get happy on the hi-hat, which is great in certain situations, but we would go, damn it, Chad, don't get so damn happy on the hi-hat. He'd be like, oh, sorry, I forgot, because he gets caught up, you get caught up in the live moment. But yeah, man, it was a great experience. And just, I think we have a lot of video from it and a lot of photos from that session, from those sessions, I should say. And just a wonderful time. And again, I just think the energy of the record was captured definitely by those recordings, because they are quite literally a snapshot in time of that, us five guys playing those songs live in a room,
Yeah.
Speaking of Chad, have you been in contact with him in the last 4 months? Have you heard about his kidney stone issue?
Absolutely. Yeah. Chad and I talk all the time. He's one of those people that I just love talking to. Yeah. He's like, yeah, you never know. You might have a kidney stone. You're like, what is that? He's like, I had a kidney stone in my heart. I almost died. You're like, what happened? He's awesome. He has many ailments, but what he does not lack is uncrustable peanut butter and jellies. We have so many jokes about Chad and his diet, because he's a youngster and he's thin as a rail, and he could eat 10 pizzas and he wouldn't gain an ounce. We would, when you tour Europe, you kind of, you go with the local, sometimes with the local, delicacy. And sometimes you just got to eat what's around, especially the after show food. And, we would get great Indian food or Turkish food or whatever, wherever you're at. And, Chad always got pizza. I'll just have pizza. So the joke was, Chad would always have pizza. So Christian and I were out shopping one day. I don't know, we were in Germany or something, and we were buying these jackets, and there were these pizza socks. So I bought him these pizza socks, and he would wear them on stage. He'd be like, "Yeah, my pizza socks." So we just do Chad's like a brother, a little brother, and definitely a family member and a partner. And we love Chad, and he's just such a great energy. Again, just so much fun to be in a band with that guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, Chad and I talk all the time. We call each other and. We just laugh about the, world events or life or, songs or, whatever. Just, whatever we're doing that day,
Well, you know how awesome of a guy is. He had the kidney stones on a Monday or a Tuesday. We always record the podcast on Wednesday nights, and here he's in the emergency room messaging me saying, I have kidney stones. I said, we'll cancel the podcast. I didn't hear anything back from him. Like, oh my God, he's in the hospital.
Yeah.
And so the next day he messages me back. He's like, no, man, I'm good. I can do it. I'm like, you were just in the ER with kidney stones. How are you doing this? But amazing guy.
Yeah.
Totally cool guy.
Yeah, he was fun.
Yeah. And he's one of those people that just doesn't want to let you down, which is, can be a fault, but it's just, we just take it as such a blessing. And he's brought such a wonderful energy to our group and the bus and the stage, and he's just a wonderful person. So yeah, what you see is what you get with Chad, and I really love that about him.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's get back to the album.
Sure.
As far as we've heard about the collaboration in the studio recording, but as far as material, writing the material, what is the process like for you and the rest of the band? Who writes majority of it? Is it a total collaboration, or is Scott pretty much in charge of that? How does it work out?
Yeah, so when I joined the band, again, I joined second record, prior to the second record, after Marco had left, or actually I got to tour with Marco for a week, and that's a whole nother story. But this is how it's worked. On the first record that I did with them was Killer Instinct. I opted to kind of not get involved in the writing process because, I was new to the band. I kind of wanted to see how things worked, and I thought the Wallflower position would probably suit me better. Just so I could kind of get a vibe. Damon Johnson was our guitar player, the lead guitar player at the time,
Yep.
and him and Ricky had written a lot of great songs together. So I kind of, have always prided myself on not being terribly egotistical or sticking my nose too far deep into the writing unless it's warranted or I'm invited. And so Ricky Warwick would always come to me and say, hey, if you have any ideas, send them to me. And so that's kind of generally how a record starts with Black Star Writers. Ricky will say, hey, guys, we should get on to a new record. I've been writing a lot of ideas. I don't know if you've really looked at our songwriting credits, but Ricky is he's quite the writer. He's quite an amazing writer. He's written with a lot of great people. He just did the new Andy Taylor Power Station record with Andy. He went to Ibiza and wrote the whole record with Andy. Ricky's a great writer, and he just, when you have somebody in a band like that, you tend to be supportive and not too, you don't want to be too inhibiting and too, you don't want to push too much on them. You want to offer what you can and allow them to, to breathe with it. So traditionally, I've sent riffs in to everybody. I'm more of a parts and riffs guy. And so I sent a few ideas in for the second record that I was on, which is our third, Heavy Fire.
Yep.
And Ricky and Damon took the ideas, and one of them turned into Cold War Love, and which they had pretty much written in my riff is like the main riff that goes to the song, and then another song called Dancing with the Wrong Girl, and so that intro riff, that's my riff that Ricky kind of augmented a little bit. So traditionally, Ricky is wide open to anyone's ideas. If you have an idea, you best send it to him because he has a great ear for music, and he just loves to take ideas and morph them into the things. Same thing with Christian. I've sent him a bunch of ideas. On the last record, Christian helped, like I said, Lindsey Buckingham, one of my ideas into a song that made the record. And so, yeah, they're very open. Ricky is the predominant writer in the band. Scott definitely he's that guy that comes in and goes, I don't know, I got this riff, and he'll play just some perfect riff that becomes the single. You know what I mean? He has, like, all of our main songs, he's written the riff to for the most part, and it's just really a testament to how great Scott is. Scott's got that Celtic feel to him, although he's from Glendale, California, which kind of is amazing to me. When I first met the guys in the band, I walked on the bus, and they were out with Skid Row, and goes back to me meeting Marco and everybody at the same time. And they all were like, Ricky's Irish. Oh, hey, Robert, how you doing? Nice to meet you. Oh, hey, Damon's, Alabama. Hey, dude, Jimmy DeGrasso's, whatever. And Scott Gorham comes walking on. I'm like, fuck, Scott Gorham's been with you a while. And he walks on. He's like, what's up, dude? And I'm like, wow, aren't you from England? He goes, England? Look, I'm from Glendale, bro. I was like, what? Like, I thought he was Irish or English, And it blew me away to hear this deep, this deep voice, what's up, man? What are you talking about? I was like, what? You know what I mean? I was waiting for, he's like Sam Elliott voice as opposed to, Rory Gallagher.
Yeah.
So it was a trip. So, yeah, man, I mean, our writing process has always, it just seems very organic to me. I mean, Ricky's great about being inclusive with the writing, and he's pretty set on the lyrics, which he's an amazing lyricist, and the guy just is really great to work with. I mean, he's always included everybody, and didn't matter who it was. He's like, good song, who's got it? You know what I mean? Let's go. And it's just a very fruitful environment for all the musicians in the band. I mean, I think everybody feels like they can get themselves involved as much as they want to work. Ricky's an old school chicken farmer from out in Northern Ireland, Belfast, and he's about hard work. And if you're willing to put in the work and earn his respect, he's absolutely will be there and take everything you say serious. And I appreciate that about him. Growing up in Southern California my whole life, being from Hollywood, California, you don't get a lot of that. You get a lot of bullshitters. You know what I mean? I'm sorry if I'm not allowed to say that, but it's just the reality. Being from here, you see people come from other places that are not from here, and you meet them and they're totally nice, normal people, and then they get Hollywoodized, and the next time you see them, they've changed their name to Starchild, and they're out of their freaking mind. And you're like, wow, well, I'm born and raised here, and I'm just still Robert, so I don't know. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting transformation that people make when they come here, but I just love that this group of guys is so sincere about what they do. I mean, that's what drew me to the band, was the music and the songwriting, and I've never played with a group of musicians that were not from California or from LA. So this is my first real experience, and it's been wonderful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. So it's from Another State of Grace. Were there any songs that you contributed writing towards?
Yeah. I'm going to be terrible here and not remember the title of my own song. Is that not awful? I mean, I'm just like the worst with that. It's hang on. See, and Ricky and them are going, oh, for Christ's sake.
Don't worry. We edit. So
I can edit the blank space out, so you'll sound great.
Yeah, hang on. I'm going to tell you right now, and it's and Christian actually finished the idea for me, which was just like I said. Standing in the line of fire.
Yeah,
holy hell.
all right.
Yeah, that's my riff. Yeah. And Christian put it into context, and Ricky wrote the lyrics to it. And, again, just ideas that you have. And this is another thing, is that I probably sent in about 10 ideas for this record. And 2 of them made the demo stage, which is, okay, great, cool. Yeah. And then one of them, ended up making the record. But in the time that, we were, working up the songs, it was so funny because the producer was like, a little apprehensive. Hey man, I don't think your second song's going to make the record. I just was like, so what? Okay, great. I again, it's part of being in a band, just like in any job setting. When you work in a group setting at your work on a project, not all of your ideas are going to be, going to make it, you know what I mean, or going to be a part of that. And part of the strength of the individual as the group is to be able to accept that and not take it personally and just move on, you know what I mean, and work and work for the, the betterment of the project. And so, I've always been good with that. I mean, I'm not a total pushover, but at the same time, it's, I'm realistic. And I think that that's been a very important part of my, not that I have success, but my ability to continue working for it's almost 30 some odd years since the first time I got a record deal and worked in a band, So that's a long time for most musicians when you think about it. Not a lot of us are out there that have been humping it for as long as I have. And, it's interesting, but it's the songwriting of Black Star Writers is very fair and very fun, and it's exciting. I was in another band for almost 15 years, and I couldn't get if I would have walked in with Stairway to Heaven, it would have been ignored, So it's just, some people are receptive and open to it and secure within themselves, and some just, have a different process.
Yeah.
And, Black Star Writers has been really cool. It's really good for all of us, I think.
Well, I think this is a great segue to the next question is, you've worked with some legends of rock and roll, some big egos. And, how do you compare working with Scott Gorham, like you said, Mr. Thin Lizzy himself, to some of the other bigger names that you've collaborated and work under?
Yeah, man. I mean, Scott definitely knows who he is. How's that? He definitely knows he's, Scott Gorham from Thin Lizzy. They toured with Queen at their height. Yeah. Scott left on a one-way plane ticket to London in 1974 and landed the lottery when he auditioned for Lizzy and got the gig, although that wasn't the gig he was supposed to audition for. Although he knows he's Scott Gorham, because let me tell you, I'm with him. He can't walk 2 feet without people recognizing him. We were in Nashville recording a record, and we were at the Nashville, the Civil War Museum overlooking a battlefield in Nashville, and the curator walked up and goes, "Are you Scott Gorham?" I was laughing. I'm like, Scott's like, "Yeah, bud, I am." And it's, he's such a gracious individual, and he's such a wonderful friend and great musician that you tend to forget that he's Scott Gorham. I mean, I've been around a lot of other quite famous musicians who've in their own right sold millions of records and are very recognizable, and they are, some of them can be a little bit, heavy on that, and Scott is the last. He's just a really wonderful person. You don't really get that from him because he just is so comfortable with who he is. He's just cool with I'm Scott Gorham, and you know what I mean. It's weird. We did a tour with Def Leppard in the UK in 2015, and we were playing Wembley, and Brian May was there, and he was in our dressing room, and I walk into the dressing room, and for Scott, he's known those guys since the 70s, and so he's like, I come in, he's like, hey, Robbie, do that one thing, that one joke. And we were laughing, and he's like, oh, this is my buddy Brian. Like, I know who the fuck he is. You know what I mean? It's just, but to Scott, it's so normal to him. You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, man, I got to jam with Michael Schenker, damn, last year was so great. He's so great. He's like, oh, that's killer, bud. Wow. He's like, yeah, man, one time I was at home and I got this phone call from this guy, and he's like, hey, you want to jam with this guy? And I show up and it was Paul McCartney. I go, you played with Paul McCartney? He's like, yeah, man, we jammed in London. It was great. I'm like, how do you top that? You know what I mean? But in the same note, he's like, come on, man, let me buy you dinner. He's just such a wonderful, really good guy, man. And I'm very appreciative that our paths have crossed. And we both love American football. So we text back and forth with regard to football and whatnot. And he's just a really good guy and really easy to work with and fun to work with. And it's kind of cool to see even the rock stars' faces light up when they meet Scott. Nervous. Mm-hmm. A lot of people are really nervous because, that Thin Lizzy double guitar thing on the Jailbreak album or Chinatown or whatever. I mean, Scott wrote a lot of those songs, and so Scott, dude, he was a sweet piece of ass back in the 70s. I mean, he was a good looking dude. You know what I mean? And so a lot of people, it's great to see people come to him and be like, man, I grew up on your music. Like, I learned how to play guitar. Damon Johnson was one of them, man. Damon was like, man, I grew up on Lizzy, man, dude, I love this guy. And it's just a great thing. And it could go to someone's head, but for me that I've seen, it's never gone to his head. He's just a cool guy. He was so cool. We played in London one time, and he has this he's a 57 Les Paul that he played in Thin Lizzy, and he brought it down because he knew Damon wanted to play it. So he just like, hey, man, bud, there's that 57. You want to check it out? I was like, what? That's the Thin Lizzy guitar. And we opened it up, me and Damon, and we're like, wow. You know what I mean? Like, that's the guitar. You know what I mean? That he recorded all those great records and those photos, and it's just a trip. That's how he is. He's just a really normal guy and really cool, and there's no air. I mean, it's weird because, like, there's no air about him, but you know what PMs are? Like the parliament members in England, like they're like senators, I guess, in America. Mm-hmm. We play concerts and tons of PMs come to our concerts, and they're like huge Lizzy fans, and they're like all taking pictures with Scott, and it would be like, whoever, Mitch McConnell and whoever else, all getting giddy about meeting your guitar player. You know what I mean? It's like, it's kind of funny to watch, and he's just like, yeah, whatever. It's great. It's great, man. He's a good dude. Yeah, we love Scott.
Fantastic.
So you guys practice in London. What's the what is the bar scene or the club scene like? What's your favorite place to play there?
In London, we get to play a lot of the O2 venues. Although I've done many tours with different bands, Steven Adler's band, Jizzy Pearl from Love Hate. I've done a lot of UK and European tours. I did some tours with Chris Slade from AC/DC and Michael Schenker and all these different people through the UK and Europe. And, although we get to play all of the basic, whether it's the arena, the Wembley Arena, or all the O2 venues, which are the larger, 2,000 or 3,000 seat venues in that, in whatever UK city that we play in with Black Star Riders. I tend to love the underground. The Camden Underground is a venue that is quite literally underground. It's like a basement venue in downtown London. It's in Camden Lock. And I just like it because it's kind of punk rock bar, and it's just old school. You know what I mean? I like those kind of venues. And man, that's probably one of my favorite venues.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's kind of change gears here for a little bit. Yourself, Keith Nelson, and yourself have worked with Ricky Warwick on this current solo endeavor. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more? Working with Ricky on the solo stuff, opposed to working with him on Black Star Riders. How does it differ, or is it pretty much the same?
Yeah, no. Black Star Riders were partners, and we have a common business interest in Black Star Riders. Scott, Ricky, and I, and And so that's a different, there's a lot of business involved, a lot of, financial, a lot of just, management and getting everything ready and prepared. Just a lot of, just a lot of that. And with Ricky's solo stuff, that's Ricky's. That has absolutely nothing to do with me. He when I first joined Black Star Writers in 2014, one of the first things he said to me was, "Hey man, do you want to play on my record?" And I was like, "Oh, what?" And he was doing the Patsy Cline record at the time. Yeah. And so I ended up playing on, I think, 4 or 5 songs on that record. And I just, what a great experience, Gary, the drummer at the time, he's an Irish guy, just a great guy. Gary Sullivan and Ricky and Mark Thoit, MGT, is that it? Mark Gemini Thoit? Yeah, MGT, yeah. And just a great bunch of guys. And again, totally different from when I had ever worked with in my whole life, never with Irish or, any European musicians, always with just LA musicians. And so it kind of set me up for the next thing that he did. And so when he asked me to do, him and Keith Nelson started working together. And the way, I don't know how it came about, but when Damon left the band, we were looking for a guitar player. I had just done a tour with Sebastian Bach. I was subbing for his bass player. And I met Keith Nelson from Buck Cherry. And because we were doing shows with Buck Cherry. And when we were starting to look, I said, "What about Keith Nelson?" And Ricky was like, "Hey, that's a great suggestion. Billy Duffy had just suggested him to me." Mm-hmm. So yeah, maybe we should look at him. So we met with Keith, and Keith's producing and doing his stuff. He's not really touring anymore, so that didn't work out. But what did turn from that is that Ricky and Keith started to work together, and work on his next solo record. And so once they had the songs together, again, I didn't have anything to do with the songwriting in that at all. That was all Keith and Ricky. And Ricky called me up and said, "Hey man, we're going to record the record. Do you want to play on it?" I said, "Sure." So it's actually Xavier and Muriel from Buck Cherry also on drums on that record. Mm-hmm. Oh, cool. So the four of us got together. We went through the songs like twice in the studio, and then we went in and we cut the drums. That was more of a Keith's process, just at least in that one record, was record the drums, come back, record the bass. So we recorded the drums over a day or two. And then I did the bass in one day, and then I left that, and they came back with the finished record, and that's that was more of a session thing for me, as opposed to me being involved as more, yeah. But because Ricky and I are really good friends, and he has included me in a lot of that, which I'm very appreciative of. He does not have to do that, and never should feel obligated to, but he's been so cool to include me in on his videos and stuff for the record. And so, yeah, man, I try to, I'm one of those musicians that I just love to play. And if I'm, we're close and we're working together, or, I can help out, I'm always down to help. So Ricky was like, "Hey man, you want to do the videos?" Great. We went to the Mojave Desert and we shot these videos. It was really cool. And just great to work with Ricky in anything, he's so talented and just fun, and he's my friend and I love him, so absolutely.
Do you feel as though the recording process, the way that Ricky does things on his solo project opposed to Black Star Rider stuff, is it pretty much a mirrored type thing, or do you still kind of get the same kind of feel? I mean, you can't help but, with Ricky being the vocalist of both things, is it pretty much a mirrored type thing, would you say?
No. I would say that, so let's go back to the Black Star Riders recordings of the records. I have these, the way my process is, for most bands and records, is I will work up a song in pre-production, or someone will hand me a chart. And what I tend to do is I write the song out in my own gibberish, on a piece of paper or on my iPad. And I quite literally, if you see my recording process, I stare at the paper and I sight read and I play along. And all of the accents and movements are just what I'm feeling at that moment. And so I tend to do a lot more of that, what I'm feeling. So I have all of these audio recordings, from our just before I'm about to go in and record the bass, just say on Heavy Fire or State of Grace, or Killer Instinct. I have quite literally my bass with a little amp, and I'm the song or the drum track being played through my iPhone, and I'm playing along with it. So I'm just writing a bass part as I'm going, and so it's kind of more of a reflection of what I'm hearing in the song, as opposed to with Ricky's stuff. I will play more of what he's thinking. and what he'll give me a flavor, like, hey, I really want this to be a little more Motown, and so I'll record some songs, with what he's feeling, or I'm thinking more of this or that, and so he'll give me what he's expecting. It's his song, it's his project, it's his vision, and that's usually I personally treat him more as an artist. What do you want from me? What can I do to help make your record better? As opposed to in Black Star Writers, I'm like, this is a band. Chad and I are going to work up the song ideas. This is our interpretation of it. If you have any suggestions, let me know. But this is how I'm recording it. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's it's all about the approach for me. I think I've said this in the past. I've done a lot of pop artists like Daniel Powter. I was talking to you the other day about it, Eric. Yes. He's the guy who did the Had a Bad Day song. I did these pop tours all around the world with him, and it was just a lot of 5-string bass, a lot of just pop music, and he would change. He was so talented. He would change arrangements and keys on the fly. He'd be like, "Bad Day in B, what?" You know what I mean? And you just had to jump in. You know what I mean? And the musicians were all top notch, just really great musicians, and so we would just I loved the challenge. I love the musical challenge of pleasing an artist. It's very satisfying for a person like myself. I get off on my own music and doing things for myself, but there's nothing like doing something for an artist and they could look at you and go, yeah, killer. You read my mind. Do you know what I mean? So that's how I treat the Ricky Warwick sessions and the Fighting Hearts thing for myself. I'm there to support Ricky and to try to make his record better for him. And otherwise, why did he have me playing on it? He could play on it. So, yeah,
absolutely. Jeff, you want to take the next one?
That album comes out in February. I was trying to look for the date real quick, and I couldn't find it. But in
mid-February.
Yeah, mid-February comes out. I got it pre-ordered. I'm excited. Can't wait to hear it.
Awesome.
The first
it's great. We love doing that record. It's great. Yeah.
The first 2 singles I think are "You Don't Love Me" and "Fighting Heart."
Yep.
And can you tell us a little bit about what to expect on those 2?
Yeah, "You Don't Love Me." That's one of my favorite songs. Just a really the mood on that song. I'm sorry, is just so. It's so just I don't know. It's something about it. For me, it's a driving song. As a matter of fact, when we were driving out to the desert, when I was driving out to the desert to shoot that video, I had that on, and I was like, "What a great driving song!" It's just such a Ricky Warwick. Great riff, just that down. It's just got that real cool, slinky, cool vibe about it, and it's just, to me, it just reminds me of an old Tarantino movie. You know what I mean? It's just super cool song. And Fighting Heart, it's just a cool Ricky Warwick riff, real positive, upbeat, great lyrical content, just well written song, man. I love everything Ricky does. I'm a fan, so you're always going to hear the positive review from me. He's no joke. He's and all of the musicians that have worked with Ricky will tell you that he's getting better as time goes on. Not that he was ever probably had a bad time,
right? I know
but he's just really, he's got a knack for it, and he has really it's almost like he writes the completed vision in as a whole. And so when you approach it, he'll say to you, "Oh man, it would be great if you played this, drums, bass, guitar, whatever." But he gives you the freedom to do with what you do. He's not like some artists where I've done sessions where they're like, no, don't hit that one note, just this note. You're like, okay, you know what I mean? He's very liberating and very welcoming to other musical ideas because he's a musician and he wants it to feel organic, and I love that about him. He's very punk rock. I don't think people really quite wrap their heads around how truly, Northern Irish punk rock Ricky is. And he's turned me on to some great music in my short time working with him. Again, being from Los Angeles, you listen to the Jam, but have you ever listened to the Jam? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's like, it's just a lot of stuff that I would listen to as a kid, but I never quite wrap my head around. And then you sit in a different position. Him and Christian are so on the same page with the same styles of music they both love. And just it's a really cool band to be in. I can't express that enough. You get Pizza Feet with the Chad and his socks, and Kristen and Ricky and Scott and me and then all of our crazy crew, and we just have a really great family out there. And you got to when you're out there for as long as we are away from our family.
That's just awesome.
All right, so here comes the elongated Marco Mendoza question.
Cool, yes.
So you took over for bass duties left by Marco Mendoza in Black Star Riders. You also picked up the bass in 2012 for Lynch Mob. Marco Mendoza left that project too, or that band, however you want to refer to that. Can you talk a little bit more about your work with George Lynch? But you can also talk to us a little bit about the transition from Marco Mendoza to yourself in both of those endeavors.
Yeah. No, what massive shoes to fill, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, Marco is just a whole storm in himself. I mean, his playing is just unbelievable. I used to go watch Marco play in the early 90s, at a place called Lava Lee here in the Valley. And he would do this 3-piece band with this guy, Joey, and he would sing and play bass. And it was like this jazz fusion thing. And I tell you, you think jazz fusion, you think, yeah, we're going to go check out this jazz fusion band. You would think it would be a bunch of music nerds, sitting, staring at Marco's hands. It was like 99% Playboy playmates, models, actresses, just drooling on Marco. And so all the guys would go to, see the girls, and it was a thing, and that was my introduction to Marco Mendoza. Like, who is this guy? And man, is he amazing? We would just sit and watch, Eric from Warrant and I would go, or whoever. And, we would all just go hang and, meet girls. And I was playing with Vince Neil at the time. And it was a great energy and time. So fast forward to my first experience of working with a group after Marco. I had worked with Lynch Mob in the 90s, right when they first formed, prior to Anthony Esposito joining the band.
Okay.
And I was a young kid, wasn't good enough, but I had the energy and spunk. And that gig that I didn't get, the Lynch Mob gig, ended up inspiring me or pushing me to go home and get better, which it did. And I later, it paid off later. But point is that I had some experience with George prior to that. So when Marco had left, I was playing in Ratt. And Michael Devin from Whitesnake was playing in the band, and Michael was leaving to go on a Whitesnake tour, and George asked me if I would sub the tour. So I went to Europe with them after Marco left, and realizing that they had the Smoke and Mirrors record that had just come out, and just listening to the bass on that, I was like, really? Yeah, I got to play all this? So, I did my best Marco interpretations. And I did as best I could. But, going into any gig after Marco, a lot of bass players won't do it because it's difficult. And it's, you're gonna get the comparisons. And Marco has just been so wonderful to me as a friend and as a guy. And I had the pleasure, I was saying this earlier, of when I did take the Black Star Rider gig, Adam and Ace, the managers, suggested that I come out on the American leg of the tour for a week to just kind of get to know the band. Just see how they roll. And so I came out and Marco was the bass player, and I got to tour with them for a week with Marco, and Marco and I would sit up all night and play bass. I would pick his brain about some of those crazy jazz fusion things he does, and just so gracious the way he's like, oh man, I ain't doing nothing crazy there. And he'd show you, you'd be like, shut up. You know what I mean? You're like, what? It's that salsa beat groove off time Victor Wooten thing that he does that is just so special, and in a rock setting, he really he'll be playing just a straight 8-note pedal, but then he'll do some craziness that you're like, what in the world? Like, where did you think of that? So Marco inspired me in a lot of ways to think outside the box in a lot of stuff that I've been doing since taking gigs over for him, and it's not by design. It's a lot of people were thinking that Marco would call me and go, hey man, I'm leaving this gig, you should come take it. That's not at all what happened. It just happenstance, to be honest with you. It just, I'm a player. I'm out there looking for work, and sometimes our paths cross, and sometimes you end up in a gig where, someone like Marco would play, and somebody's got to do the gig, and I'm pretty shameless. So I was like, I'll do it. So that's kind of what it's been with Marco. I was saying too, the Daniel Powder thing that I brought up, he had done the record for Daniel, this pop record, and I had gotten the tour, and Marco was like, hey man, how come I didn't get the tour? I was like, I don't know. But it's there's a lot of different pop and rock gigs that Marco's done that I've ended up in that spot. But it's more because Marco does so many recordings and so many records that, you're bound to get one of the gigs at one point. So yeah, Marco's wonderful, man. And just what a wonderful energy of a person. And I did a tour in 2019. Yeah. Summer of 19. with Dizzy Reed and his band, the Hookers and Blow Band, with Alex Grossi and them. And we opened for Dead Daisies in America. And so we were out for like 9 weeks with those guys. And every night I would just sit and laugh and watch Marco and just listen to his, his laugh and his, he's just awesome, So yeah. Very cool guy.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, Jeff, go ahead. Take the next one.
So you speaking of Ratt, you were in Ratt, 3 albums. You were with Collage, self-titled, and Infestation. How did that come about as far as getting involved with Ratt and?
Yeah. So Ratt, I was, let me see here, 1996. I was playing with Vince Neil, and I just left the Vince Neil gig. And our tour manager for that tour was a guy named Larry Morant. And Larry's later, been the guy who does the Monster Rock tours, cruises. You know about those cruises?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So Larry's like the organizer and all of that. But prior to all that, Larry was our tour manager. And so when I left Vince's band, he came home and had taken a tour with a Japanese artist. And Larry called me. I'm going to say this was about October of 96. And he said, I've got a gig for you. I don't know if you're interested. And I was like, I'm not interested. What is it? And he said, it's a Japanese artist. They need a bass player. They don't have a bass player. And would you be interested? And I said, not really. So he said, just meet me anyways and listen to the music. So he gave me the CD. I went home that night and I just threw it on my desk and was like, whatever. And he called me that night and said, no, we need you to come in tonight and play with us. And I was like, oh, really? So I come into the room and it was right. You know where Sound City is? You ever see the movie Sound City? Yes. Dave Grohl did?
Yes.
It was right across from Sound City. It was this rehearsal studio right across the street from Sound City, or the parking lot. Mm-hmm. And I walk into the room, and it's Al Petrelli from Alice Cooper and Trans-Siberian Orchestra and Stephen Piercy from Ratt. And this drummer named Hiro, I forgot his last name, and he's the Japanese artist. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, wait a minute. This is weird, right? So I learned these 5 songs, like right there, and we kind of played. So I do this tour. We open for Manowar. We go on tour in America, opening for Manowar. Stephen Piercy, Al Petrelli, myself, and this drummer with Larry Moran and a few other guys. And it was awesome. I mean, Manowar, right? I mean, Joey DeMaio in the flesh. And it was awesome. It was funny. It was great. We were playing we'd play a Harpo's in Detroit, and then we would play someone's living room in Muskogee, whatever. and it was a really fun tour, and it was coming off of the Vince Neil thing. It was a little bit of a culture shock, but it was fun because here you were with this Stephen Piercy from Ratt and Al Petrelli, and everyone was just having a great time. No one really cared, and they were paying us a fortune. So we did that tour, and Stephen was telling me on the New Year's Eve of '97 about their possible reforming of Ratt, and I wished him well, and that was it. Then he called me one night in April of '97, and it was like at 11:30 at night. I hadn't heard from him, mind you, since the New Year's Eve show, and he's like, "Hey man, what's going on?" I'm like, "Not much, man. What's going on?" He's like, "Hey man, we're rehearsing tomorrow at Audible and in Burbank, and 11 o'clock, man, be there." And I was like, "Oh, no one called me." He's like, I know. Don't worry about it, man. Just be there at 11. I'm like, all right. So I figured it was for Vertex, that band Vertex that we were doing with Al and Hiro and everybody. I was like, called Larry, and Larry never called me back. I was like, that's weird. Like maybe they got another guy and it didn't work out. I don't know. So I go to Audible because that's where I rehearsed with Vince, and I'm sitting there. I'm sorry, it was at Mates. He told me. So I go to Mates, and Bobby from Mates is there. I'm like, hey man. He's like, hey, what's going on? And I'm going to meet Stephen Piercy here. He's like, Stephen's not rehearsing here. And I was like, what? So I like freaking Stephen. So I call. He doesn't answer his phone. I drive home. I'm like all angry. I unload my gear, and he calls me an hour later. Where are you at, man? We're waiting for him. I'm like, I went to Mates. He goes, I said Audible. I'm like, no, you said Mates. Long story short, I rolled to the rehearsal studio, and I roll in with my gear, and the first person I see is Bobby Blosser, and he's like, so you the bass player? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you're late. And I'm like, what? Like, what's going on? And I walk in the room, and there's Warren and Steven. And I'm like, what's going on? Steven's like, just put your gear up. Come on, let's play. And I was like, wow. So we quite literally, I set my bass gear up, and we start working on songs for the Collage record. The first song was Dr. Rock. And no, I'm wrong. It was Railbreak. And which is Steel River. So we work up these songs, 5 songs that 6 songs or something like that, and then we go into the recording studio 2 days later and we record that record. And mind you, most of those songs are outtakes from prior Ratt sessions with Juan and Robin on them. And so I recorded 5 or 6 songs on the record. And literally that was it. Like, okay, man, thanks. Bye. Don't call us. We'll call you. And that was the end of it. So this is in April. And then fast forward to May, end of May. I had not heard a word. Steven calls me again. He goes, hey, man, we're doing a photo shoot down at Zlozauer. You should come down. I'm like Zlozauer? Like, oh, for what? And he's like, just come down and hang out, man. It would be cool. It'd be good for you to hang out. And I'm like, whatever. So I show up and I walk in and Bobby Botch is like, you're not wearing that in the photos, are you? And I'm like, what photos? And they're like, yeah, man, we're doing a photo shoot. He's like, yeah, we're doing a photo shoot for the record, man, and the tour, and you're in the band. I was like, what? You know what I mean? That's quite literally how I ended up joining Ratt. And awesome. Yeah, and it was very much like not official ever. It was more like, I mean, as a matter of fact, after every tour for the first 10 years, or maybe 6 to 10 years, Warren would say to me, all right, man, thanks a lot. We'll give you a call if we need you again. That's I was just like, okay. I was like, it was that, you know what I mean? It was a little odd, but yeah, it was a very interesting time. And, I was in that band so I guess it would be April from 97 all the way till 2012. And, yeah, man, it was an interesting time. I mean, very shaping in my life. I think I was 27 at the time, 27 or 28 when I joined the band, and I was well into my 40s when I left. And I started the band. My wife and I had just met and started. We met in '94, but we just started dating in '96. '97. Right at the time I joined Ratt, and so. It was a life change for me. My wife and I, had our kids when we were in Ratt, and, we bought this house that we live in, and very much Ratt was a very big part of my adult life and my current life. And I'm very appreciative of that. I mean, there were really good times and, bad times too. And, bands are like families and girlfriends and wives all in one. And the drama can be heavy, but, for the most part, the band was really creative. Carlos Cavazzo joined the band in 2008. And brought just an immense amount to the writing and to just the spirit of the band. And I think he had, such a huge part in the writing of the Infestation record. I mean, he wrote the first 2 singles with Steven. And, same thing with that record. We had that band was very different. They never really welcomed any outside writing. They wanted it to be more in-house with Warren and Steven. And so I was never really welcomed in the writing. But the producer, Elvis Bisquette, who later did all the Slash and Alter Bridge records, he just said, hey, man, I want it to be a writing competition. Best song wins, and bring me your demos. So we all went off for a couple of weeks and demoed songs, and we all introduced our ideas, and mine sounded a little too Ratt for Ratt. They were like, that sounds like a Ratt song. And I'm like, that's right, it's Ratt. And they were like, no, man, that's like a ripoff of Ratt. I'm like, yeah, that's right, it's Ratt. Like, holy moly, what do you expect? And so one of my songs made the record, Lost Weekend, which is on the Infestation record. And it, to them, sounds like a little too much like Lack Communication. For me, I was thinking more early Van Halen, and but okay, whatever. But yeah, they were like, I mean, I had another one that sounded a little too much like Round and Round, and it was like, the producer goes, he heard the demo and he goes, don't, just take that climbing bass line out because it sounds too much like Round and Round. But other than that, it's great. And I was like, killer. So I took the bass line out and I played it for him. He's like, that's killer. You just bring it tomorrow. And I downloaded it to a CD back when CDs were happening. And I unfortunately bounced the original track down with the climbing bass part. And so when I played it for him, it had the climbing bass part like Round and Round. And it sounds like Round and Round. We're not using it. I'm like, sure. So, it was, hey, listen, I was a Ratt fan. I was a 14 or 15-year-old kid. I learned how to play bass to Juan and Motley Crue. That being from Hollywood, they were my bands. They were like the bands I would grow up. Wasp. I see Wasp in the clubs. I saw Motley Crue at the Starwood. I saw Ratt a ton, the country club and whatnot. So I mean, I saw a lot of those bands as a youngster, and so they were bands that, growing up in West Hollywood where I grew up, where, going to Fairfax High School where Slash went and Flea and all those guys, the Chili Peppers all went to the school. Everyone grew up and, joined a band, played clubs, got a record deal, and went on to be famous and successful. So I kind of saw it as like, hey, everyone does it. Why can't I do it? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It seemed attainable to a 15-year-old me. Yeah. And, as a youngster, I don't know if you guys know this, but I worked for the band Poison prior to them becoming, they were a big LA band at the time, but I worked with them all the way up until they got signed and went on the first couple of tours. And so I was their bass tech for that. And that was just a product of me being in Hollywood and being so excited about music. I wanted to be around every aspect of it. And I learned an immense amount being around Bob and Brett and Ricky and all those guys. They taught me a lot. And, how to be a band member. That was the biggest thing I learned from those guys was how to swallow, your opinion and do what's best for the whole. I watched that happen a lot in that group. And that taught me an immense amount, that it's not about the individual, it's about the whole. And so, there you go.
Whoa. Yeah. That was an awesome story.
Yeah.
So here, this is where we're at. We have about, 5 minutes and we're going to have to let you go because Damon's calling in.
Damon, we love him.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So, we've already kind of talked last night about maybe we could possibly do a part 2 with you in a few months.
Yeah, this has been fun.
Because I have some stuff that I wrote out. I want to save it because I want to get your full story on it.
Sure.
Does that work?
Yeah, I've got other bands you've talked about we haven't even talked about.
We just haven't scratched anything, and Jeff's got to edit the hell out of this because I don't know how to speak like I'm educated.
I had some moments too.
Neither do I.
So what I'm going to ask you is, can we delay the rest of the Q&A for a later date? I can text you this weekend to get maybe something in April. And then we can go from there for a Robbie Crane part 2. Does that sound?
Absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
This has been fantastic. So, all right, so we're going to end it here. And so this is how it's going to work out. We have about 2 to 3, I think 3 interviews ahead of yours. Yours is probably going to come out in 2.5 weeks. That's generally the rule of thumb. And then when we do that, Jeff's the editing wizard over here. We'll ask you to kind of share it to wherever you possibly can. If you have any socials or anything like that, Instagram, whatever. If you could share it, that'd be fantastic. Text you here maybe even tomorrow to set a date because I gotta text James Lomenzo as well to get a date in April. Maybe we can do a 6:30 and 7:30 with you and James, and it'll be a bass night or whatever.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, James is awesome. Yeah,
he is. So, all right. Well, we want to thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And I will be texting you tomorrow, and we'll get a date down. All right, man.
Perfect, man. Thank you so much for the interview, and we'll talk in a bit.
Hey, thank you so much.
Night.
Take care. Bye bye.
Okay.
inside.